first time since 1924, Georgia and Georgia Tech will not be playing in college football this season. That comes after the SEC announced that it would be going to a conference-only format schedule this season in order to try and combat COVID-19. The move makes sense as it joins the Big Ten and the Pac-12 in announcing a conference-only schedule, though the ACC had announced a 10-game conference schedule with a +1 non-conference game theoretically built in so that teams like Georgia Tech could play their in-state SEC rival. Georgia Athletic Director Greg McGarity said, "The pandemic has just created so many oddities that a lot of things are almost out of your control. It's just one of the things that are unfortunate when you're in a situation like that. It's just unfortunate." Meanwhile, Georgia Tech head coach Jeff Collins also weighed in, saying, "I'm disappointed that our players won't have the opportunity to play our in-state rivalry game this season, but respect the SEC's decision. We will continue to focus on controlling what we can control in a structured environment with thoughtful protocols in place and staying ready to go out and compete this fall should public health guidance allow it. All we need to know is where and when, and we will be ready to put the ball down and compete." Georgia and Georgia Tech have both come out and said that they look forward to trying to play each other once again in 2021. But fans, especially on the Georgia side, don't exactly seem so excited about those prospects. And there are some valid arguments they make. For one, Georgia and Georgia Tech just seem to be operating in vastly different universes. Georgia is competing for a national title every year, while Georgia Tech is slowly trying to rebuild its program after Paul Johnson's retirement. Second, many Georgia fans are even wondering why this is even still considered a rivalry. The Bulldogs haven't lost in Atlanta since 1999 and have won the last 3 games in the rivalry by a wide margin. Last year's 52-7 beatdown was particularly emphatic. For Georgia, this game just seems to be another game, and at some point out, a game where you could potentially get tripped up and have injuries that ultimately affect playing in the SEC championship game. For Georgia Tech, the game has essentially turned into their Super Bowl with a chance to put an exclamation mark on their season by upstating their big in-state rival. Factor in that Georgia has a lot of other rivalry games against the likes of Florida, Tennessee, Auburn, South Carolina, potentially even Alabama, and you can see why some might say, let's just move this one rivalry game away. You could also bring up that if Georgia's trying to impress the College Football Playoff Committee, why not schedule an extra non-conference game, say against a team like Clemson or an Ohio State, instead of a team like Georgia Tech that really isn't going to boost your resume all that much? I certainly understand that losing to Georgia Tech isn't something anybody wants to do. I'd make the argument that losing to Georgia Tech is the worst possible thing that could happen on Georgia's schedule. Not so much because it upsets the SEC or any national title hopes, but because in this state, in the state of Georgia, you have to hear for a full year about how you lost to a Georgia Tech team that, as we just laid out, isn't really operating on the same budget or playing by the same theoretical rules that Georgia is. It's incredibly frustrating. But I think that's what makes sports great. You have to really deal with the losses and learn to live with them and hold on to them and remember them in order to truly appreciate and make those victories feel great. Obviously, Georgia's racked up so many wins against Georgia Tech that it's sort of lost the significance of beating the Yellow Jackets, but that still, to me, doesn't make it any less significant when Georgia goes on to beat Georgia Tech almost seemingly every year. A lot of people who would like to see the rivalry go away say you're just trying to hold on to tradition. But isn't tradition what makes college football special? Isn't going down to Jacksonville part of what makes the Georgia-Florida game so great? Isn't playing Georgia Tech that final weekend after Thanksgiving when you know you've still got leftovers at home part of what makes the sport what it is? We've already seen Georgia move it from its usual November game against Auburn, move that to October. So that's one tradition that's already been moved. If you want to move this Georgia Tech one, that's fine too. Eventually they're going to come for Jacksonville and make that a home and home with Florida and Georgia every year. At a certain point, eventually all these traditions that we hold dear, the traditions that make college football what it is, and essentially, in my opinion, differentiate it from the NFL to an actual sport that has its own sort of ecosystem, all those are eventually going to be gone if you start moving things on and just start doing the best for the best. If you want to turn college football into sort of a Champions League style with 20 teams play each other in a round-robin format every year, that's fine. But just don't call it college football to me anymore. It'll be a minor league NFL season. And if you start moving these traditions and stripping them down and changing them just to chase the almighty dollar that much more, well, I can't change your mind on that. But for me, I don't think that's what college football should be about. I think it should be about the traditions. I think it should be about experiencing great victories like Georgia beating and upsetting Florida, or dealing with a loss like Georgia did in 2014 to Georgia Tech. I think because of all that, because of the tradition, while some might be willing to cast it aside so quickly, I think that's what holds this sport together. And if we're willing to throw all that away to chase more money, to chase more dollars, well then what's the point of even calling it college football? We might as well as call it the bastardized sport minor league NFL football. So when you think about moving the Georgia Tech game or changing other traditions, I certainly understand why there are valid viewpoints for that reason. But at the end of the day, if you keep changing things you love about your sport, at the end of the day, you're not going to recognize it and won't like what you end up seeing as the final end product. I completely understand why Georgia and Georgia Tech aren't playing this season. Due to COVID-19 and the differences in possible testing models between the ACC and the SEC, it makes a lot of sense. With the SEC backing up at the start of the season to get a better understanding of what COVID-19 might do to college campuses when students return, there just aren't enough Saturdays to get that game in under the schedule. But I hope that it is just a one-year disruption and not a continuing moving away from tradition that makes Georgia and college football as a whole special. For DawgNation, I'm Connor Riley.
For more DawgNation videos, check out youtube.com/DawgNation.